I tend to take the long way whenever I go anywhere, and I just love exploring different parts of the city and turning down roads that have never been down before, and making Knoxville feel like home for me. When you've lived there for a while and then you dig in and you realize, wow, there's so much more beneath the surface. It can be as simple as just going out of your way on the way home to drive down a street you've never been down before, or supporting a business that you've never walked into before. A little bit of new perspective can go a really long way. I started Native Maps in 2011, and it was really out of a love for my hometown, Dallas. I grew up in Dallas, and I guess you could say I grew up kind of driving across the city, sort of back and forth. A friend and I sat down one afternoon and started to map out the city almost just for fun. So that was really interesting, just to dig into those kind of nooks and crannies and parts of the city that I had never explored. So we started with our Dallas neighborhood map, and I started selling that at local markets in Dallas and connected with a couple of stores and started selling in those stores. And then we moved to Knoxville, Tennessee for grad school at the University of Tennessee. And about halfway through grad school, we decided to expand the concept and try to take on a handful of other cities and see if we could treat those cities like our hometown, with the same amount of care and connecting with locals in each of those cities to make sure that we got all of the information right. So we started Native Maps halfway through grad school in Knoxville out of the attic of our home. I love screen printing as well because it's a very hands-on process. Each map passes through our hands several times before we roll it up into a tube and ship it out to a customer. It's something where we're actually putting the ink on the screen and pushing the ink through the screen onto the paper. So it's something that is very much a handmade process, and I think there's something about that comes through in the finished product. Really, when you think of a specific neighborhood, you're not thinking about the streets, you're thinking about the people in those neighborhoods, or the connections you've made, or the memories you've had there. And I think, to me, that's the beauty of really any map, is it sort of lets you hold all of those memories and all of those experiences in one kind of visual product. Making the Knoxville map was sort of taking that one step further and just really digging in, exploring the whole city, really making sure I knew it well and kind of had a good sense of what I was representing. That was definitely a big part of feeling at home in Knoxville, was making the Knoxville map. I think with any city, and especially with Knoxville, some neighborhoods are really well defined and some neighborhoods aren't, and you really have to kind of dig in and actually drive there yourself and understand where the boundaries are. And even sometimes I've stopped into local establishments and just asked, like, hey, what do you call this neighborhood? Or how do you sort of relate to this area and sort of the areas around it? So that was definitely a part of making the Knoxville map too. I really enjoy taking the neighborhoods that aren't as well known, or maybe the people in those neighborhoods are really proud to live there, but they might not be as well known or historically relevant. So I love digging into those neighborhoods as well, and just making sure that the whole map each part is equally accurate and well represented. We really wanted to make a map that locals were proud to hang in their home. We love hearing from locals. That's really my favorite part of making these neighborhood maps, is talking to actual locals in each neighborhood. And if somebody speaks up and says, hey, where's my neighborhood? I'll include it almost immediately. So whenever we start a map, we come up with the rough draft ourselves. So that's mostly me looking at all of the resources online, and I'll take all of the different maps that I find and layer them in Illustrator on the computer. And if there's a consensus in any given neighborhood, I'll go with that. If there's not a consensus, then I'll do a little more digging. people can get really up in arms about their neighborhood and just get very opinionated and interested in what should be included and what shouldn't be included. And I really love when that happens, just because even if they're a little feisty about it, it means that they love their city, and that's why they care so much. In Tennessee, we have Nashville, Knoxville, and Memphis, and then we also have a map of Franklin, Tennessee. And as far as other major cities that we have are Manhattan, Brooklyn, Los Angeles, Seattle, Dallas, and probably about 15 other major US cities. I think it's always important to respect the history of a city and to be really inclusive and knowledgeable about each city that you're making, to try to build our business and our process so that that map can always change and adapt and grow. It's worth getting to know all of those different sides of a city. What I enjoy most is meeting actual people in the city and in those neighborhoods, and just hearing from them why they loved their city.